For those of you who don't know me, everybody knows me, but I think you're the only person who hasn't met with me, but I'm Amy, I'm the dietitian. And we're doing our support groups a little different now. We're the first 20 to 30 minutes, we're going to do an educational session. I'm doing it today, and then Pam, who's our fitness instructor, she'll do the session next month, and we'll alternate between nutrition and fitness. And then Lynn Comboy, our social worker, she's going to come and she'll moderate the support group for the remaining time. Okay. So Kim, you may need to shut me up because I can keep going and going and talking and talking. So I have a lot of information. I'm going to try to get in as much as I can in a short amount of time because I usually talk for a full hour, but I'm not allowed today. So anyway, but what I'll have everybody do, we are, in a crunch time, but if you can just go around and just introduce yourselves and just quickly say where you are in the process, like whether you've had the surgery or you haven't had the surgery.
Okay, my name is Dalvon Dell. I haven't had the surgery. I'm just starting the process.
I'm Julie Mariner, and I am 5 days post-op and doing well.
Good.
Wow.
And I'm Cindy Odom. My surgery was April 3rd.
Wow.
Yeah. I'm doing good.
I'm Tammy. I had my surgery, it's almost been 2 years ago, and I'm 80 pounds lighter.
Yeah.
I'm Jen, and I'm just starting.
Very good.
Great, okay. Well, the topic tonight is mindful eating. What does mindful mean to you? What does the word mean?
Thinking before you pop it in your mouth.
Very good. Okay, paying attention, that's exactly it. Really paying attention. And mindful, to become a mindful eater, it really means to gain control. And some of you may be thinking, well, wait a minute, those of you that have had the lap band, well, that's why I came to get the band, because I do need to gain control of my portions. But that's only half the equation. Yes, it controls portions, but the lap band doesn't control emotions. Right? You're still going to have bad days after the surgery, you're still going to be stressed, you're still going to be anxious, you're still going to be bored. So it doesn't control emotions, and it can't dictate what you should eat. So the next question is, how do you decide what you should eat? In a perfect world, it would be nice if our bodies would say, okay, I'm short on calcium, drink that milk. I'm short in iron, eat the red meat, but our body doesn't do that. I mean, we know that we should eat for fuel, for sustenance. That's the whole point of eating. But for most of us, we eat to feel good, or for many of us. And what's the problem with that? What's the problem if you're eating to feel good?
Eating the wrong things.
You're eating the wrong things.
Too much.
And too much, exactly. So, this chocolate that I just gave you, and this carrot, that's okay. Well, are you laughing because you ate it?
I keep giving her the eye.
Okay, so some of us eat to feel good. So chocolate versus this carrot. Which food is going to make you feel good?
The chocolate.
Yeah, the chocolate. No one said carrot. Okay, so I have this cartoon, which I think is pretty funny. I don't know if you've seen this, but I'm on a low-carb diet. Whenever I feel low, I eat carbs. So, I mean, do you think this girl, is she choosing a carrot as a carb? Is she choosing brown rice as her carb? No. I mean, they do have carbohydrates, but what is she choosing?
Chips.
Yeah, chips.
Is that peanut butter?
There's peanut butter there, which is interesting. I don't get too many people tell me their cravings for peanut butter, but ice cream, French fries. What do these foods have in common? And potato chips, they're carbs, but there's also a little bit of fat. I mean, typically we crave foods that are high in fat and high in sugar. Okay?
That's me, sugar.
Pardon?
I said that's me, sugar.
Sugar, yeah. And sometimes it's a combination of the fat. And why do we crave these foods? We can thank our brain neurochemicals, serotonin, for that. Okay, and I don't know if you've ever heard of the relation between, our food cravings and our mood chemicals in our brain, but there's some truth to that. If your serotonin is low, we can turn to food to help raise the serotonin level. So feeling calm and at peace, you need to think serotonin. Well, with food, how does that relate? Well, if your serotonin level is low, we eat carbohydrates. And carbohydrates, basically, in order to get to the brain to make serotonin, you need insulin to shuttle it in. Well, if any of you are diabetic and you're thinking insulin, what do you eat that you know is going to get your insulin level up?
Sugar.
Sugar, absolutely. So that flood of insulin, when you eat that instantaneous gratification of sugar, shoots your insulin up, and guess what? It actually gets shuttled into the brain, but it's not necessarily the carb that gets shuttled into the brain. Tryptophan, have you heard of tryptophan?
Isn't that what's in turkey?
What's in turkey, exactly. Okay, so actually it shuttles tryptophan into the brain, and then it gets assembled into the serotonin. It goes up, and you're like, ah, I feel good, I feel at peace, I feel good, okay? So some of our foods, like chocolate and Cheetos, are like a natural Prozac. They help us, they put us at ease, okay? The other mood chemicals in our brain, dopamine. If you're aroused into a motivated state, think dopamine. If you're over-energized with focus and aggression, norepinephrine, like you've probably heard of fight or flight, like if if a dog's chasing after you, your norepinephrine goes up and you're running. Feeling good, euphoric, you think endorphins, okay? So why am I mentioning again these mood chemicals? They run on sugar and they're made of fat. So if we have an imbalance in our brain chemicals or our mood chemicals, then we need a fix. If we tend to eat foods that are balanced, then sometimes we can help balance these mood chemicals in our brain so that we can feel good. Because again, if we are constantly turning to feel-good foods like chocolate and cake and mashed potatoes, it can be dangerous because we're going to gain weight. And the second thing, which I think is important to understand, is that we may feel good, but it's an instantaneous gratification. It's short-lived, and that's the problem, okay? So what I'm going to talk to you about in these next couple of slides is how to make your brain happy and how to truly become a mindful eater to reduce the cravings and to reduce you from overeating, because those of you that have had the ban, you still can overeat. You may wind up getting sick, but you can still overeat, and you probably still have cravings, even though you've had the lap ban. So the first thing is you definitely need to feed your brain. Those of you that have worked for me for 6 months, probably some of this stuff is going to be repeated, and I just reinforce it. Do not skip meals, because what happens when you skip a meal?
You don't eat the next meal?
You overeat at the next meal?
Mm-hmm.
You do. You tend to overeat. I mean, basically your brain is screaming. And when you have the ban, you never want to be ravenous, because your good intentions of eating a salad or anything healthy go right out the window. You're very hungry, so you eat quickly. And as you know, those of you that have had the ban, you cannot eat quickly.
That's over.
And you eat bad foods. You want the quick fix foods, which again, the mashed potatoes or a Pop-Tart, your body doesn't have to work at breaking those foods down. That sugar gets into your bloodstream quickly. Okay, it's like an IV, drug user. They need to get it in quickly. Food can do the same thing. Your body doesn't have to work at breaking it down. The next thing that's really important is getting the right mix. Mixing the protein with carb at every meal. And you all know about protein. I really stress that, but I don't want it just to be protein, because remember, these brain chemicals, they run on sugar. You have to have carbs for your mood. So you want to, at every single meal, like I've mentioned, you want to mix a combination of lean protein with a little bit of high fiber carbohydrate at every meal. Why am I saying high fiber carb? Because you're still going to get your serotonin level up, but it's not going to mess with your blood sugars. It's going to be a nice even keel. Don't eliminate any one food group, especially the carbohydrates, because I have encountered some people that did an Atkins type diet where it was protein, and boy were they in a bad mood and they were miserable. There's no carbohydrates. You have to have some as part of your daily plan. Do not follow an extremely low-fat diet, and with the ban, you really do. I mean, I tell everyone that once you've had surgery, please make sure you add a little bit of added fat. Usually the general rule of thumb is I say 3 teaspoons, try to get it in there. Because again, the mood chemicals, again, they are assembled by fat. You need to have a little bit. And remember, after surgery, you're eating predominantly lean cuts of meat, you're doing low-fat dairy, you have a small stomach pouch, so and a lot of times you can't even tolerate fried foods. I'm not sure if Tammy, if that's an issue where you have to completely stay away from the fried foods.
Yeah, they don't work.
So it's very minimal. So you've got to make sure that you do get your fat, and in a couple slides we're going to talk about that. So.
And there's something satisfying about having a little bit of fat in the meal.
Absolutely.
I don't know if it's mental or not, but I've tried the whole like no fat, like when no fat was a fad.
Right.
And you could eat a whole plate of food and just be like, I'm still hungry. I'm not satisfied.
Right.
You know,
right.
and there's
right.
a connection there somewhere.
There is. It is satiating, not as much as protein. Protein of all the nutrients is actually more satisfying than fat. But you are correct that fat stays there, and it actually delays gastric emptying. So, Tammy, as you mentioned, it doesn't work. That's simply because when you eat something, it's like a cream soup or fried foods, it just sits right there. It's not moving. Right. But you have to have a little bit. I mean, fried foods, that's to the extreme, but a little bit of added fat is good. And not to mention when you eat like a salad or vegetables, all those phytochemicals and antioxidants that are in the salad, they need a little bit of added fat for absorption, for the fat-soluble vitamins. So you don't, I'm sending this message, you don't need to go fat-free. So you should be like, yay. You can have actually a low-fat dressing. It doesn't need to be fat-free. Eating small, frequent meals throughout the day to maintain a stable blood sugar, that is so critical. No, again, getting back to not skipping meals. B vitamins. I don't know if you know this. You know, all of you, I tell you, in addition to what you're eating, please take a multivitamin that has B vitamins in it. B is for brain, and I don't know if you know this, but the B vitamins help assemble the mood chemicals in the brain. Okay? So it also helps convert carbohydrates, protein, and fat into energy. So some of you, you know, some people just, you know, they drink their B vitamins or take a vitamin, like extra B, but if they're not eating with it, they're not going to get any benefits. You have to have food in your system for the B vitamins to really work. And actually, a vitamin B6 deficiency has been linked to depression. So again, it's important for these mood chemicals to be balanced. You need your B vitamins. And why am I focusing on this with you? This is mainly for my patients that have already had the lap band. I have patients that say to me, Amy, I can't eat bread, can't eat pasta, can't eat rice. Well, guess what? They're all fortified, they're enriched, they have folic acid added to them. Where else are you getting, now not necessarily the B6, but B12, your meats. And some of my lap band patients say, I can't tolerate red meat. I can't eat chicken, I can't eat fish. So your list of foods gets smaller with what you can tolerate with the band, so you have to worry about deficiency. If you take a multivitamin, though, and you work with me and say, Amy, you know, I'm falling short, I can find other foods that can help, and I just have to make sure that you're regimented and every day you're taking your multivitamin. It's so critical. So these are the different B vitamins, and really make sure that from food sources, you know, if you find that you can't tolerate red meat, but you can eat tuna, well then eat tuna, you know. And again, this is more for patients that have had the lap band, that are really struggling and have some intolerances.
Does it matter what time of day you take your vitamin?
Doesn't matter the time of day, but you do need to take it with food. Just don't take it on an empty stomach. And it could depend if you're taking a medication. Like Synthroid, you shouldn't be taking that with food. You would probably want to separate that and take that later in the day. So depending on medication, but in general, if you're not on it, I mean, just as long as you're taking it with food, that's fine. And also, too, if you're taking calcium and iron, it's a good idea to maybe separate them a couple hours from that because they can interfere with the absorption. Any other questions about the B vitamins? Okay. So we talked about fats. So if you're going to eat fats, you're limited with your stomach pouch, then guess what? You want to go with the best fats, and that would be the omega-3 fats. Have you all heard of omega-3? Okay. So not only is it the good type of fat for your heart, but it helps to boost immunity, it reduces your risk of developing stress-related disorders. It's a really good type of fat. It actually is good against inflammation in the body. So sources, your best way to get it is fish. Okay, so salmon, sardines, mackerel, tuna, those are your best sources. Your plant sources, they're good, not as good as fish, because it's almost an inefficient process. Your body has to convert it in your body to become efficient. So you are better off doing the fatty fish, but you can. I'm happy if you do the plant sources. So canola oil, flaxseed, walnuts, green leafy vegetables. So, you know, if you're going to use a little bit of mayonnaise, you know that they do now make mayonnaise with canola oil, flaxseed. You can add flaxseed to your yogurt. You can add it to your cereal. Flaxseed oil is fine. Now some of you may go, ew, fish, I don't like the taste of it. Anybody not a fan of just eating fish? Everybody likes fish.
I can't digest it anymore.
You can't digest it. Okay, so then it wouldn't hurt. You could do a supplement. You know, just be cautious. Like if you're on Coumadin, like any type of blood thinner, you need to be careful. But you could take the omega-3s as a supplement to get it in.
A little bit.
Eating more wholesome, unprocessed foods is really the way to go because, again, with these mood chemicals, if you're constantly turning to highly processed foods, they're typically high in fat, high in sugar, could be a combination of both, and again, it becomes a vicious cycle where you eat it, your blood sugars go up, you feel really good, you feel energetic, and then you crash. And when you crash, you're tired, you don't feel alert, you feel like you need another pick-me-up, whether you need a cup of coffee or you go to the Snickers bar. So the more unprocessed wholesome foods, the better you're going to still assemble those mood chemicals and be even keel. With added sugar, no more than 10% of your calories should come from added sugar. So I use 1,200 calories because for the majority of you, once you've had the lap-in, you're really not tolerating any more than 1,200 calories. So that would be no more than 30 grams of sugar or 7.5 teaspoons of sugar. Okay, which is not a lot. I mean, a can of soda is 12, which you all know you can't do soda anyway because of the carbonation, but it can really add up quickly. So again, you know, to reiterate, you can have a little bit, that's fine. You want to have a piece of cake, you can have it, just not overboard, okay? And sometimes we do need to give into those cravings. If you really feel the need that you're having a bad day, just give into the craving, but just do so in moderation. You know, like I always mention, eat the good stuff, and at the end of the meal, you know, give yourself a satisfying piece of chocolate. That's fine. And again, get your sugar from wholesome carbs. The fruit is still going to get your serotonin level up. The vegetables, the low-fat milk, the whole grain breads, they're still going to get your serotonin level up. And what you have to view is not only am I doing that, I'm feeling better, and I'm getting a whole host of vitamins and minerals with it, as opposed to the Twinkie or the Pop-Tart, which is just empty calorie sugar, and it's not giving you any nutritional value. Okay. The next couple of steps that I recommend, I mean, you know, the first 4 rules, basically, it is work on your part. You kind of have to think about it a little bit. But for some of us, you know, even though we're talking about the timing of meals and trying to make good choices, we still tend to choose foods and we're unconscious. We're not even aware of what we're doing. So that's the next couple of slides are really talking about how to truly become a mindful eater to prevent you from overeating and giving into those cravings. So rule number 5, getting in touch with the feeling that triggers you to make poor food choices or overeat. When I have you journal, if you remember on the right-hand column, it says, how are you feeling? There's a reason I asked that. Is it true physiological hunger? If you're writing, I'm stressed, I'm bored, I'm anxious, that's emotional eating. That's triggering you to overeat. And when you're finished eating, how are you feeling? Do you feel satisfied? Are you feeling like your button's going to pop? Are you uncomfortable? Okay, so really getting in tune with, okay, I'm bored and I'm eating, and what am I really feeling? And if you know that it's a boredom thing, then distract yourself with something else. Either take the dog for a walk, or, I mean, it could be checking an email. Really get in tune with why you're going to the refrigerator and making a food choice, being more mindful of it. And this is interesting. Most cravings pass within 15 minutes. So if you can fight the urge to eat while explaining the underlying trigger, then you've gained more control. It's a control thing. You go, wait a minute, I walked away, I took a walk, or I went out and garden, and you know what? I'm fine. I didn't need to eat that piece of chocolate. Okay, that doesn't happen in every situation. I'm not gonna fix this in 100% of the cases, but it can help you to really stop and ask yourself, why am I eating this? Okay. The next step is eat without distractions to really help you savor the food and slow down. Okay. This is where the chocolate's going to come into play. So you all have your piece of chocolate. But what I mean by eating without distractions is, you know, are you driving down the road and are you eating your breakfast? That is kind of a distraction. Are you eating in front of the television? Are you eating in front of your computer? you're not real mindful if you're multitasking and looking at the computer screen and eating, and you're going, oh my gosh, I've eaten too much, or if you've had the lap band, it's more, have I eaten too quickly, you know, so you have to be cautious. And really savor the food. Pay full attention to what you're eating as opposed to what's going on around you. Forget what happened in the past, what's happening in the future. Just live in the moment and take that food and really savor it. Have any of you ever, you know, you went to a party and you saw a cupcake and you just ate it because it was there because you're like, I love cupcakes, it's my trigger food. But then once you ate it, it really didn't taste that good. It wasn't the best cupcake and you go, gosh, why did I eat that? Sometimes if you slow down and eat a couple bites and go, it's really not worth it, then you stop and go, I don't really need to eat this. So that's what the mindful eating is all about. So what I want you to do now is I want you to take the piece of chocolate and you're going to smell it first. You're going to take it out of the wrapper and you're just going to smell it.
If I smell
I know. Poor Julie.
okay.
Poor Julie's on liquids, and I'm making her do this exercise. Just smell it. Well, first off, I should start by saying, you know, chocolate is feel good, but I did give you a piece of dark chocolate.
Yeah, I noticed that.
So you all know that dark chocolate is better than milk chocolate because of the antioxidants. It is beneficial, so it doesn't hurt to even have a little piece of chocolate every day. So smell it, and I don't want you to pop the whole piece of chocolate in your mouth. I want you to take a bite of it and really savor it. I want you to grab, which I noticed you doing, Cynthia, even before we started this exercise. She's taken real gradual bites and savoring it. And, you know, some of us would just pop it in and be done with it and grab another one and another one. But what you will find is if you really savor it and taste it and take your time, that after one you go, wow, I'm satisfied. I don't need any more. It also helps too if you don't have the band, if you're trying to lose weight before you have the band with me, which I'm going to ask you to do, to lose a little bit of weight, to slow down and savor. And that's why I said to slow down. It does take 20 minutes for signals to go from your belly to your brain to say, I'm full. So by really savoring and slowing down, you might go, wow, I've eaten, 3/4 of the plate. I left 1/4 on the plate. I don't even need to finish it. I'm full. I'm satisfied. That's going to help with your weight loss goals. And also with the band to help you slow down so you're chewing your food really, really well. So whatever distractions you have, get rid of them. Now, I have had some patients that say to me, I need to have distraction. It's actually good, which is not the norm. I'm not saying it's not normal. I just mean that most patients, they do need to be isolated. It has to be quiet, where if they are conversing, they do take a break. They put their fork down and they're talking and they're socializing, and then they take another bite. Whatever's going to work for you just to become, a more mindful eater. And then becoming aware of the body's hunger and fullness cues. I know, for those of you who've met with me, I go over this a lot. That you really need to be in tune when your body's growling, you need to eat. How many of you have ignored those hunger signals? You have a busy schedule and you're working and you go, I can feel it, but you know what? I've got another hour on the clock. I've got to finish what I'm doing. And then sometimes that cue goes away, and we're creatures of habit, and you can train yourself where it gets to the point where I've had patients say, I don't even feel my stomach. I don't feel it growling. I don't know what that's like, Amy. I don't know what it's like to be hungry. And I'm thinking, you need to get back into that. And
I think that's the worst thing about like an 8-to-5 job is that, you're trained to eat on a schedule.
Right. You
are. 12
are.
o'clock,
You're
it's
right.
lunchtime,
You're absolutely
no
right.
matter whether you're hungry or not.
You're absolutely
This is the time
right.
that you go and eat. You
Yep.
know, so it's hard to break. That's when I was doing my pre-op diet. I was drinking like a protein shake like at 10 o'clock, and then when lunchtime, I was like, I'm not hungry. What am I going to do? And I was like, no, it's okay not to eat at 12 o'clock just because it's lunchtime. I can, talk with my coworkers, watch TV, do whatever I'm going to do, then head back, and then, if it's 1 o'clock when I get hungry,
Sure.
then I'll, but we are
Sure.
so trained by the
By
clock.
the clock instead of
that
our
it's
internal
tough.
cues. That's a very good.
Yeah,
That's a
it's
very
tough.
good point, and we need to get back into that. And that's the next point with getting rid of the diet mentality. All of you in here, at one point before the surgery, have been on a diet, some sort of diet. And chronic dieters, really diet is synonymous to me with unhealthy eating. It really is, because as a chronic dieter, we suppress our awareness, our hunger signals, and our fullness. It's almost like you're afraid. You don't want your stomach to growl. I'm on a diet. I don't want my stomach to growl because that means I'm going to have to eat. And we suppress it, and that's what we should not do. Plus, we have a list of forbidden foods. I'm not going to eat this. It's a recipe for disaster. When you forbid foods, you ignore those internal signals, you set yourself up for failure. So you really need to get back into being in tune. And I think some of you that have worked with me, those of you that have had the band, you know what I say to you. After surgery, I say, get rid of the measuring cups, get rid of the calorie counting. We don't do any of that. I've said to you, I want you to just focus on not drinking with the meal, chewing your food into mush, really getting in tune with those cues and being mindful and paying attention. And the rest usually follows, because if you're taking your time and eating slowly, you won't get sick, you'll feel satisfied, you'll get what you need. You may need to cognitively think about the choices you're making, but again, it's the protein and fiber, but it really, it snowballs into a good thing where you start losing weight. So we really need to get back into listening to those cues, because our body, I've mentioned it before, it really is a well-balanced machine. It really, when it's telling you something, you need to listen, which is very true. So that's pretty much it. I thought this was an interesting quote by, her name is Dr. Laura Pollack. She wrote a book, Stop Gaining Weight, and she says we have to learn how to put food back in its place as a tasty part of the day rather than the thrill of the day.
That's good.
Which again, it makes sense. We live in a society where there's such extremes. We need to really just enjoy it and savor it, as opposed to, again, just having these empty calorie foods as a focused breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So, well, thank you all, and I'll let Lynn take over.